Hi guys, it's me Giovanni, of course, and I wanted to make this video because, you know what, I'm just getting tired of this already. So the two last videos that I made, terrible, but the last one, which was 1 to 2 days ago, is absolute trash and I hate it. So, I'm gonna take care of that later. But for now, I'm trying to explain the Fnaf 4 and Midnight Motorist, some soft story, especially from the last video that I did. Part 2. So, okay. So, I think I actually solved it this time instead of, I still watch people's videos about the entire thing, especially since, the latest, recent, Fnaf book from Tales from the Pizzaplex, involving one of the short stories involving, which is didophobia, involving a kid named Roy. I'm just gonna call him Roy because that's more easier for me to say. So Roy, in the story, he's supposed to be like 7 years old, and he lives in this house with his dad and his mom. His dad goes off to work, and his mom is sort of a neat freak. And when he makes a mess, she scolds him for it. So, I tried to explain the story. People have already explained the story, especially in the entire story of the book. So I'm just going to say about how it explains the games. So Fnaf 4 is basically an experiment. And I actually believe it because for once it actually makes sense. Well, for once. Because at first we thought that the bite victim, also known as the grandchild, had those nightmares, or Michael, but both of them would be entirely impossible because now that I realized it, it turns out that, well, let me just show you. So this is, so basically, this, thing that I found while searching, the Fnaf 4 map in sister location. So basically, this is supposed to be a layout with, the main highlighted in fully pure white is, the Circus Babies Entertainment and Rental Building, or the bunker. And in the recent story, in the didophobia story involving in the book, Roy is basically in this sort of like this place that's supposed to be like his house, but it turns out it's actually some sort of experiment where he goes into somewhere which is basically the private room in the bunker place, the sister location, and it turns out that the nightmare animatronics were actually mannequins, and that the gas, which are seen in one of the cameras in the private room, actually, the gas makes, the people in the room hallucinate that the mannequins into the actual nightmare animatronics that we see through the Fnaf 4 gameplay, like the actual knights. So this is the grandchild, or William Afton's house, with his children, Michael, the Crunchild, also known as Evan, and Elizabeth. So the main house from the minigame involves the 4 squares, Evan's bedroom, Elizabeth's, a hallway area that's completely blank, and the living room. And I actually like this additional details with another side that was completely non-existent in the actual house, considering that it only focuses on the 4 squares. The 2 bedrooms, 1 hallway area, and the living room, leaving out to the front door, and then the entire yard and the way to the Fredbear's Family Diner. Now, a YouTuber said that this was also an experiment, but I'm pretty sure it's not, because I can also see that this has an elevator to the circus gallery, which is still in the bunker. And considering that there's also an elevator to the main elevator to the location, that, well, in animatronic world, it would make more sense for the underground bunker for the main elevator to be located underneath Afton's robotics company instead of underneath his house, which honestly makes more sense and a little less confusing. Especially since I don't know where anyone came up with that. And in the remastered Pizzeria roleplay, there's like certain vents leading to either the Fnaf 4 house, to Fredbear's, or some other places, which I think this would actually make sense in some way. But this one looks a little off. But I'm not going to question it. Hell, I'm not going to question any other things. So I'm guessing from these like thin sort of narrow lines are supposed to be like vents, maybe? I'm not sure. Well, the reason why I also think that mannequins turn into the Nightmare animatronics is because even though people barely even notice them throughout the day, because they're in the shadows, which I can pretty much guess. Oh, and also, I regret the things that I said about William, just didn't deserve to have children because he experimented on them. That's actually not true. He did not experiment on them. And in Midnight Motorist, it's pretty clear that it's the Aftons. But the location is different because the house is like almost in the middle of nowhere in a forest. And I'm guessing that Midnight Motorist and the Fruity Maze minigame are semi-canon because it does tell the story of certain events involving the Fnaf series, including Midnight Motorist involving the Aftons. But in the Midnight Motorist minigames, it's sort of a scenario, it's almost like what happened to the Aftons, where William was driving home after he murdered Charlie, and he came home to knock on his son's door, Michael, and his wife told him to leave him alone. He had a rough day, probably at school or something, and William doesn't listen. So he goes out when he notices that the door's locked, and he gets annoyed and tries to find a way to get in, but when he goes to the child's window, it turns out that it was broken and that Michael might have run away and to go to that place again. And there was also something watching him, probably an animatronic. And William doesn't actually question it. He doesn't exactly question the patch of dirt or grass or something, or the animatronic footprints, mostly because he knows about them. He set up Nightmare Fredbear, or Nightmare Fredbear was an illusion, but he was still there. His footprints were there, and William might have known about it. And he also known about the, well, sort of patch of dirt or grass, because that is the Cronchild's grave, and Michael might have ran away, hid in the forest where his father can't see him, and might have went to the grave to probably console his brother. I'm just saying. But also, fun with Plush Trap, I'm basically thinking it's another experiment where both of these experiments did happen, but Roy was the last victim, especially in this building structure. Now, even if it wasn't part of the bunker or just some random thing that was supposed to be a house, I'm guessing maybe if it was a bit more similar and made more sense, maybe it was an abandoned house that William might have used to, no. It's certainly not a house. It didn't, when Roy got ready for school and tried to go to school, he realized that there wasn't a door to anywhere. And so, William Afton did not experiment on his children. And the reason why Michael bullied Evan, because Evan was scared of the animatronics, it was mostly because he was scared of Fredbear for some reason. We are not going to question the details or maybe the reason why Evan was scared of the animatronics or Fredbear. I mean, he wasn't scared of... He wasn't the kid in the Fnaf 4 game, but he was the character we play in the minigames. And considering that in his bedroom, there's the Fnaf plushies, Bonnie, Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy. They're supposed to be his closest friends, including the Fredbear plush. And the Fredbear plush, especially the walkie-talkie, was used by William Afton to pin his children against each other, which is still messed up. But he did not experiment with his children, thank God, because he was an evil he became an evil scientist after he murdered the missing children and discovered Remnant, and try to get Remnant by murdering the children, by making animatronics to lure them and kill them in sister location before and during Elizabeth's death. And after Elizabeth's death, he decides to use experiments on children. And I actually thought of this, and so William Afton decided to recreate his youngest son's fear by recreating his son's bedroom, but making it more spacious and not like what it was in the actual house. And I think he first wanted to use this on Michael to give him a taste of his own medicine, because he was the one to kill his brother because his brother was afraid. And seen in the Fnaf VHS tapes, William says about the kids, if they were Michael, then they deserved it, which furthers the case. I'm going to explain the rest in the next video. Bye!